and welcome back to another episode of the Zero Empty Spaces podcast, episode 65, with Boca Raton Innovation Campus resident artist Nanette Saylor, here from her beautiful space at The Brick. If you didn't know about Zero Empty Spaces, myself, Evan Snow, and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, as arts advocates and creative placemakers, started an initiative to activate vacant commercial real estate spaces so talented artists like her can have space to create and collaborate affordably outside their homes. It's led to a myriad of win-win-win benefits with the first 32 spaces we've activated now over the last 5 years across 4 states, with over 700 artists coming through the program. But the point of the podcast is to connect you with the talented artists like her that make the program what it is. And if you'd like to find out more, you can log on to zeroemptyspaces.com. But without much further ado, can you share a little bit about your journey with art and creativity and kind of what inspired you to this path that you're on today?
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And I want to first acknowledge you and your partner in Zero Empty Spaces, because I've been a follower of the art placemaking world for a long time. I became a creativity coach almost 20 years ago when it was a thing that nobody understood what that was, right? And transitioned out of corporate America into creating. And I really appreciated and still do what connecting to our creative essence means and what it does for us. So having spaces like this where we can introduce the concept to a broader audience is really important to me personally. And I appreciate it as part of the community. So thank you. What brings me to this and to the acrylic painting is really the next evolution of me as an artist with a capital A. Right. I've been a creativity coach for a long time. I came at it from the place of wellness. Me starting to create again was all about feeling better about myself midlife after I gave up my lifetime career and was kind of floundering around. And so I did a lot of dabbling in things. One of my favorites was to play with repurposed materials. And we have the connection of knowing from downtown Fort Lauderdale, the Trash to Treasure family. And that was really how I started to reconnect to my creative energy. And then that led me to begin to work with women in particular. And I did a lot of corporate work also, where I would take creative play into audiences and provide short, fun opportunities for people to connect in a way that they wouldn't normally. And as I did that, it got to a place where I started to recognize that my own artist was returning. I had been a high school artist and I hadn't done anything with it as an adult. And so this is the result of that, me continuing to nurture that and play with it and then say, okay, and just really following the energy. And it led me here. So.
There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of beautiful colors. You've got a great scene that we're sitting in front of here. How do you, being an artist with a capital A now, how do you like to describe your current work and style?
I call this archetypal. I call it energetic. Sometimes I call it surreal, depending on what some of the more the things that don't have figures in them, might be surreal. It's also expressionistic from the perspective of, because each of these, none of them originated as this idea. They originated simply as color on a plain canvas, and then movement on the canvas and brush strokes on the canvas. And then they each appeared as the energy continued to flow. And as I follow the energy, that's where it goes. And this is what ends up being.
So beyond me assuming, I would like you to share and confirm, what are some of your inspirations? I'm assuming maybe more on like the yogic, Ayurvedic, mindfulness path, but either on that path, spiritually, energetically, or on the artistic path, what has kind of inspired this movement and this
Yeah.
energy here?
So most of these are following a process that I'm now trained in called intentional creativity. And intentional creativity is simply creating with intention. For purposes of what you see here, these are all acrylic on canvas. And painting deliberately. And what was interesting to me about it is that I'd not painted in color ever until I started dabbling with a friend of mine who she and I were doing some workshops for women, and she happens to be an acrylic painter. So I did some smalls, little canvases with, some colors brushed on them, nothing very fancy. So just more the idea of playing with the color and the freedom and feeling good about producing something. And what I started to experience as I studied intentional creativity is the whole somatic, the body engagement when you paint on a larger scale. And I also had been a modern dancer as a child and a teenager, and I'm very attached and connected to the five rhythms dancing. Gabrielle Roth, you may know her name in the mindfulness space, and that's all a fluid movement through rhythms that goes from flow to chaos and then back again. So all of those pieces come together for me. Now, this is my first really big canvas, and it's something. When you put the brush in your hand, and when I put the brush in my hand and I start to move with it, I feel it. And there is now science. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about creative frequency, right? And there's science that says that we are actually transmuting that energy when we paint. And so it's a super cool experience, and I am so excited about it. And I've been doing this a couple years now.
That since you resumed from the pause you had taken from high school?
Well, I started creating when I was creativity coaching, creativity coaching, which is about 20 years ago. But mostly I was doing art journaling, I was doing some mandala doodling, I was doing small watercolor, I was doing nothing on this scale, no big painting. And certainly not much. I was starting to get re-familiar with color, but I still was very afraid of color. And so it's fun for me. Behind you, there's actually one of my original pencil sketches from high school.
Oh, wow.
And I leave him there because...
No worries.
Yeah. I leave him there because he reminds me that there was a time that I wouldn't touch color. And when I come in here and I see and I feel all of this, it's just really fun and energizing to appreciate that I had that fear, and I don't have that fear anymore, right? So it's helpful. It's also helpful for me to, because I teach workshops also, and a lot of people come into a painting workshop very afraid, right? Very uncomfortable. And so having the experience of being able to say, look, this is the path I walked on, and it's okay to be afraid, and it's okay to try and see what happens. And if you don't like it, guess what? You can just paint over it.
Well, happy mistakes or happy accidents.
Yes.
And glad that path led you, to recreate or picking up creativity again for yourself.
Yes.
Not just on behalf of your clients, which there's obviously a great purpose there, because you certainly have a very unique style, very beautiful work. The colors blend very well. There's a lot of vibrancy to the colors, and I love that there's some of them are more figurative than abstract, or they have abstract components to it. How did you come about these colors? Like the purple is just so vibrant. And what is it? A lot of artists that moved here from other places talk about the environment, the being in South Florida, the sun is more vibrant, being near the beach. How did you, intuitively arrive at this beautiful confluence of creativity here?
Yeah, I will say that I believe that a lot of it has to do with being in an environment where we see all the time the vibrant colors that we do, right? And I've lived in Florida full time since 1984. So I've traveled all over the world, and I grew up in the Northeast. And when I go to the Northeast in the winter and I see how gray it is, this cold and the snow doesn't bother me, but the fact that everything is so gray is really depressing. And it reminds me when I come home that how blessed we are to see, just to look out. I happen to live over by the beach, and I get to drive out of my apartment complex and look at the ocean and the sky and the blues and the greens and then the flowers and everything else. So I think that it does have a lot to do with that my awareness is really exaggerated, I guess, is a good word, because I do get to see all of that all the time. The other thing I will say, I do want to call to Shiloh Sophia McLeod, who is the woman who began intentional creativity, the current movement as it is. It goes back a long time, and there are many, many, many of us, and lots of us that are now certified as intentional creativity coaches or teachers. I'm a teacher officially. And her process and her, the fact that she gave me the list of the first paints that I started using, I have to give her credit for the beautiful purple and the magentas and the bright yellows. And I will also say that one of the things I'm starting to realize the more that I do this, and as I'm around other artists now, because I'm in an environment like this, I use a fluid acrylic. I don't use heavy body acrylics generally.
Okay.
So the fluid acrylics behave much differently. And I've only discovered that because I picked up at Resource Depot now up in Palm Beach,
Great place.
some acrylics, and bring them home and start playing. I'm like, oh, these don't quite do what my other golden fluid acrylics do. And so it is interesting to notice and to be aware that I'm really starting to appreciate now that some of the glow that you see here is absolutely attributable to the paints. And the way that they can be applied. Now, certainly I'm using a very layered, loose style. So you're seeing all of this kind of vibrate through. This is many layers already, and it will have many, many more. And those layers give it a lot of the vibrancy. But if I was trying to do it with a heavy body acrylic watered down, it wouldn't work the same way. Now, I understand you can apply some glazes and things, but I have not worked that way yet to kind of thin the paints out and get them to behave differently.
Well, you found a style and a process that works for you.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I can kind of see, as I'm looking around the studio, the evolution of the work.
Yeah.
And kudos to Shiloh, is her name?
Yeah.
Kudos to Shiloh. That sounds like a great program. I'm looking forward to learning more.
Yeah.
As it relates, you describe yourself as a creative catalyst. What does that mean to you? And maybe for those that are not familiar with this term, with this space, with this type of work.
Yeah.
And how do you help others unlock their creative potential?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about providing an opportunity for you to engage in creative play. That's really where it starts, right? And if I believe we are, all of us are at our core, our essence is our creative energy. And some of us, unfortunately, sadly, came of age in environments where that wasn't nurtured. Others of us learned that it wasn't important, that we needed to put it aside for something else. That, and so what I love to do is engage people in really simple activities to begin with that aren't scary, right? And that's where the repurposed materials come in. One of my favorite activities for mixed audiences, I work principally with women individually. That's just because that's where I'm at, right? And I love to go into corporate environments and do events before strategic planning sessions, for example, to get everybody loosened up and to invite them into a little bit different space. And one of my favorite activities is to take a brown bag of miscellaneous materials and drop it on a table with 6 or 8 people sitting around it and invite them to create something from it. Now, typically that's going to be whatever your business idea is, right? So if you're there to strategic plan, the next zero empty spaces evolution, then that would be, okay, take these paper towel tubes and chopsticks and old CDs and videotape and some tin foil and some bottle caps, and let's see what you make. And it gives people an opportunity to almost instantly, they're thinking in ways that they absolutely would not be thinking if you gave them a pencil and a piece of paper.
Correct.
Yeah. And then once that's happened, now the light bulb's gone on. And now there's an opportunity for the next time you come around to maybe introduce a paintbrush.
Correct.
And say, okay, we're only going to play with 3 colors. I love this. This is called Magic and Mystery. And I love her because she's really only 3 colors. And and I leave her hanging there as an example because it doesn't have to be, when this behind me, this is probably close to 60 hours worth of energy here and layers and multiple colors and all kinds of, right? That one is a couple hours. 3 colors, some simple shapes, some simple lines, some call to imagery that means something to me. You'll almost always see a heart in my work somewhere. You'll almost always see a reference to some kind of a compass, a star, almost always a moon, almost always something in nature, almost always some reference to water. Those are all things that are important to me. And so I call those in as I'm going. And the more time I spend with it, the more, we like to call it in the intentional creativity space, we call it tending. I'm not fussing with my painting. I'm not fixing my painting, right? I'm tending my painting until my painting doesn't need to be tended anymore. And eventually, the paintings literally tell me they're done. And that's kind of how it goes. The process is very energetic, and it can be, also doesn't have to have faces in it. There's a couple of just flowers over here on the table. Not just flowers, I don't like to use that word. A couple of flowers on the table. And that's the same process, done much smaller, very quickly. Layers, beginning with a color attached to a feeling. These particular ones were 3 different feelings. And then brush strokes connected to a feeling. And then those brush strokes inform what happens next. And then a little bit of inquiry around what did I want to be bringing forward in that would really accent the feeling that I was trying to bring to myself. And then in this particular case, I was using the theme of flowers by design because I had been walking with a friend and she and I were taking pictures of flowers. And so a couple days later, I said, let me play with flowers because I really wanted to see if I could take this bigger process into a small canvas that someone who was afraid to paint a face could do and come away with a finished piece that they felt really good about.
Wow.
And it worked. It was fun. So now I'm going to do a workshop about it.
No, I mean, that's great. That's how, that kind of intuitive free flow, open swim, as Scott Jeffries calls it, process is how I like to create.
Yeah.
If you sat me down with an easel and a canvas and paintbrush and paint, I don't know what I would create. But when because everyone always said, "Oh, are you an artist?" No, art's had a profound impact on my life. I'm creative in my own way. I don't sit down to paint. But when the opportunity has been presented to me, it's been so rewarding and fulfilling and mind expansive for me to just dabble and doodle.
Yeah.
And I would only imagine, the endless positive benefits that could come from presenting that in a corporate or any team environment. We're very excited here at the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, the former IBM headquarters, which is the largest office campus in the state of Florida, owned and operated by CP Group, to integrate more wellness in the workplace opportunities to the employees of these major companies that have their, headquarters here. One could consider it to be an amenity. One could consider it to be an employee benefit. Or even from like a leasing perspective, if if a company's looking at two office buildings and one of them has a cafe and a gym, and one of them has a cafe, gym, and an art studio where their employees could take classes to enrich their lives, to help them attract or potentially retain talented, skilled workers further. The opportunities are really endless. And it's super interesting that we have a few different teaching artists here. We have Michelle Sherman of I Heard You Could Draw, who has a lot of classes for kids available. You have some great offerings available. For those that maybe haven't gotten to taking a class yet, but in today's fast-paced world, for those that might feel disconnected, especially from the creativity, what's one simple daily practice that you would recommend to help reconnect with that inner artist or inner creative that's inside of all of us?
The place that I started was drawing in circle, was just doodling in a circle. And I created a pad for myself that was kind of like my daily doodle journal. And I took old CDs and I drew circles in that pad. So I could sit at any time, watching TV with my husband is a great example. I could sit at any time with that pad in front of me with the circle and a black pen, and I would just start doodling in the circle. And that is an amazingly cathartic experience.
Yes, perfect word.
It really, you just, and the important piece of it is to allow yourself to not approach it as if you have to make it be something. The idea is, when I do mandalas, for example, I don't use a compass, I don't use a ruler, I don't get all crazy with making it all precise. I totally appreciate people who do and totally appreciate that way of doing it. For me, it was all about just letting my hand move and letting me get my head and my mind out of the way so that I could really just have the experience of following my pen. And in the intentional creativity world, we call it metacognitive drawing. You'll see Patricia next door. She does the neurographica, which is another way of doing just a line drawing with some flow to it. But any version of that it literally, I used to do a workshop too with some of my business women friends where I would invite them to open their desk drawer, pull out a pen, a highlighter, a paper clip, and a blank piece of paper, and we would start just playing with the basic office materials. So really, at its core, the exercise is simply about giving yourself, could be 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 on the long side, with a blank piece of paper, a circle, and just doodle inside the circle. And for me, the importance, what I came to appreciate, and it was happening intuitively, and I didn't really understand it. Now I have language for it. The circle is a symbol of wholeness. The circle is a belongingness. The circle is a centeredness. When I was at a point in my life and there was so much chaos that everything was out of control, if I could sit for just a minute and doodle inside a circle, everything was okay. All is well, right?
It very well can be. And that is a great process.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doodling myself. If somebody would like to go past the doodling and is looking for some professional guidance, what are ways that individuals can engage you to work with you one-on-one, workshops,
Yeah.
come by the studio?
Yes. Yeah. So I work one-on-one. I work in groups. I'll do workshops. I can work remotely. I also, coming up in April, I'll be hosting another Artist's Way creative cluster for people who are familiar with, or even may not be familiar with, Julia Cameron's work, The Artist's Way. This is a beautiful introduction. The sub has a course in discovering and recovering your creative self. So for people who are in that space, that's always free. Julia's work, her wish was that creative clusters be convened kind of like 12-step groups, so there's never a fee for that. And as I say, I'll be starting one in April. You can reach me via email at Nanette at Wisewell is the name of my company and my website. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook, Nanette Saylor. I don't think there are any other Nanette Saylors. And the createwithnanette.com is often where you'll see the workshops that I have coming up. At the end of February, I am going to release a what I'm calling Break Free and Bloom. So we'll do a little painting. And that one I'll be able to do. I think I'll be able to get probably 3 or 4 people here in this space and then also broadcast it. So we can do kind of simultaneously on Zoom or on video for those who aren't local.
Connect Free and Bloom.
Break Free.
Break Free and Bloom.
Break Free and Bloom.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other projects, books, artistic endeavors, anything else coming up that you'd like to share about?
I'm just excited about being here and seeing what happens in this collaborative space because I know that there will be, we always have our open house.
Yep.
Yep.
Open studios every first Thursday.
Yeah, and that's been a lot of fun, and we've got some ideas about that, some things that might be coming up. So I will likely be adding something creative for people to do at the open house. I know Patricia in the space next to me does that already. So so we'll
definitely encourage people to join every first Thursday of the month from 4 to 7 o'clock. Here at our Boca Raton Innovation Campus location. If you pull us up on Google or if you look to park at the 4950 Communication Avenue North parking lot, it says main entrance, and you take the hallway to the right after entering the lobby. Our space is down the hall when the hallway opens up to the cafe where there's some amazing Dorothy Gillespie works on your left. Our space is on the right, where we have glass windows and glass, frontage, so you can't miss us. And many of the artists are here multiple days a week at any given time. But the open studios is when more artists are here. But our hours are 12 to 5 p.m. And a lot of the artists are available for classes, workshops, conversations, commissions, so on and so forth. I would like to. Maybe just take the camera, spin it around, and show them just a little bit more of your studio and your process here.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about your process in your studio here.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's kind of fun to have an opportunity to talk about it. I mentioned earlier about the fluid acrylics, and I do want to call out that Golden's fluid acrylics are really my preferred. And this particular color, the name of which I can't even pronounce, is this yellow is the one that I find myself running to the store to get more of on a regular basis. So, and the beauty of having these kinds of vibrant colors is that in this space of creating with an energetic expression, what I'm doing now is following the lead of what's already here on the canvas. At about this point in the expression, it's kind of a hot mess, right? There's a little bit of everything going on here. And so now is the point where things are starting to speak to me in sort of sections. Like right today, what's calling to me is this spiral. And so what I'm going to do with the yellow is just go in and add some more light. And I'm literally following what was there before. And I'm not being particular about the strokes. It's not really that important at this particular stage. And then I let the brush go where it wants. So now I've left the spiral and I'm moving on, just following the marks that are here before. And typically, I'll bring that lightness into 3 or 4 places on the canvas. So there's some balance. But it may be that if I only have a short period of time, I'll just work in one area. But more likely, like here now that I've called this out, this is starting to speak to me. So coming back here, and I'm just going to add some more. And since this is starting to drip, and I happen to really like drips, I love the way they feel, I'm going to spray some water on it, and I'm going to let it get kind of crazy.
Nice.
And it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's completely up to you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing, and I appreciate you giving us a peek here. And the last question that we like to wrap up with here on the podcast is, and I'm going to join you because I want to be closer to this painting, is...
just don't lean in the paint.
What do you like the most about having a studio to create in outside your house?
I'm super excited about being just in the energy of other artists. And I will say that the one thing that pushed me over the edge right now is this large canvas is kind of hard to deal with at home.
That's right. Yeah, you got messy, you got creative.
Yeah. So, but most important, I think for me, the thing that the difference is, as I'm stepping into my identity as an artist, to come to a space that has other artists in it, is really important. And we have awesome artists here.
Yeah, right? And no two artists have had the same style, which is amazing. Out of 700 plus artists, you bring certainly a different vision, a different light, a different energy, a different color palette to the space, which we certainly welcome and appreciate. You know, you've been a joy. Your friends and followers on social media love to see you post from the studio, which is super really cool. So we're excited to welcome in new friends, clients, collectors. We're looking forward to making more wellness in the workplace opportunities available here for the employees as well as the community. So certainly encourage you to join us every first Thursday of the month from 4 to 7 o'clock for our monthly open studio event here at the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, the former IBM headquarters. Connect with Nanette, connect with our 19 artist studios here. We're currently full at the moment, but if you know an artist that's looking for space, feel free to have them apply on our website. It's not binding. They'll get added to the waiting list, and then we'll keep them posted when we have new space available. We have plenty of great opportunities, other open studios at other locations, our Cruise for Creative coming up, a wellness retreat, and plenty of other ways to get creative, get involved, and hopefully find more balance and peace in your life, which has been so beneficial for people like us. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm an open book.
Me too.
And you can reach us at Zero Empty Spaces on Instagram, info@zeroemptyspaces.com. And we look forward to continuing to grow this, make more spaces available, help more talented artists like yourself.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Namaste.
So nice. Yes.